All right, welcome to the Doctor Investor Podcast. I'm Dr. Shamim Nazir, and I have with me today Dr. Cory Fawcett. Dr. Cory Fawcett is a general surgeon. He spent 23 years as a practicing general surgeon and has been an active real estate investor for almost the same duration of time ever since the beginning of his medical career, and then since then has written several award-winning best-selling books: The Doctor's Guide to Real Estate Investing for Busy Professionals and The Doctor's Guide to Eliminating Debt. And look, I have my signed copy right here, Dr. Fawcett.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he's got multiple. He's got a whole series of books on The Doctor's Guide, and you've got your own coaching program as well on investing and other things. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. So Dr. Cory Fawcett, we just met at Passive Income MD conference over the weekend and got to see you in action.
That was one of the most pleasant times of the whole time, was to sit down and talk with you.
Oh, thanks.
It was nice. We met in a mastermind,
Right.
a little session where we get to just get to know each other in the group. There was maybe 6 of us or so, and talk about our journeys and where we needed help. And it was a lot of fun to meet you and learn about you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. I love doing this stuff.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know we kind of alluded to it. So you started in general surgery.
Yeah, well, I guess you got to say my journey started way back when I was a little kid and sitting on the lap of my grandfather when he read me the little book called Dr. Goat. And it was about a doctor who run around town fixing everybody. And then when he got sick, everybody came back to help him. And then he was on his way and back to work again. And I think it was that inspired me to head towards medicine. And I almost quit medical school. At the end of my second year, end of my third year. We started clinicals the third year. And my first 3 rotations, I disliked immensely. I just did not, this was not what I signed up for. I didn't like it. This is not, and I, at the time I was recording, I'm a songwriter and musician as well. And I was recording an album, in medical school. I guess you can do something other than medicine, when you're in medical school. But I was thinking very seriously, since I just didn't like this, the way it was going, that I should just quit medical school and go full-time music and be a professional musician. So it kind of came down to, I know a lot of musicians who are better than me who don't eat so well, but I don't know any doctors that don't eat well. So, that was kind of weighing on me. And then my next rotation was general surgery, and I fell in love with it. I just absolutely loved it. I realized at that moment that what I was a fix-it man. And all of the other rotations I had been in, like internal medicine, you never fix anything.
No.
You just temporize things. They come in with a problem, their diabetes is out of control. You help them get it controlled. They're back 2 months later with the same problem. But in surgery, man, you come in with appendicitis, I'm going to fix that, and it's never coming back again. And
Yeah.
I really loved that aspect. And so I took off with that and loved medical school from there on out, and went on to become a surgeon, moved back to near my hometown in Southern Oregon, and practiced in the same practice for 20 years. And then I did 3 years as a locums as I tried to wind down my practice. I wanted to slow down. I didn't want to retire to go from full power to nothing. I thought that might be a bad idea. And so I wanted to work part-time, and my partners wouldn't allow that. They wanted all full-time partners. And so I retired from them and just did locums 2 weeks a month. Did that for about 3 years, started my business to help doctors learn better about investing, learn better about using their money well, handle their finances in a way that'll get them what they want in life. And that was what I decided I would use as my purpose during my retirement. I didn't want to twiddle my thumbs and play golf. I needed to be doing something. And so I started doing that road, and it led me to you.
Okay. And lots of other people. Yeah, so that's really interesting. You started after your retirement, this company and the educational platform.
Yeah, it was like my whole thing isn't about teaching people what you could do and what I could do and watch me do it. I already did it already. Let me show you how I did it. So
Yeah.
almost everything all of the books, everything that happens is because I've done this. Let me show you how I got through it.
Yeah.
I think that's, when you really want to learn something, you want to find somebody who's already done it.
Yes, absolutely. Because I'm on, LinkedIn and social media, and obviously I know a lot of physicians and they know what I'm doing. They'll reach out to me sometimes to ask me, hey, I found this property or this apartment building. I'm thinking about buying it, and they want my opinion, and I'm thinking, well, first of all, don't do it alone is my main advice to them is having a mentor that's been through that process is so important. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend that. So tell us a little bit about your journey in the real estate side.
Well, when I was a kid, I was the oldest grandson to my grandmother and grandfather who owned real estate. Grandpa worked in a mill, and Grandma was a stay-home mom. And she worked a little bit in the fall, when it was pear packing time. She would go get a little Christmas money. But they would save up some money and buy a house and rent it out. And they would have that house. They had houses when my grandmother passed away in her 90s that she had purchased when I was a little kid. And for 50 years, she got money off of that property, and she lived on it for the rest of her life. When my grandfather died, she was fairly young. I was 15, I think, when my grandfather died. I noticed Grandma didn't have to go get a job because Grandma had money coming in from her real estate. And
Yeah.
so I paid attention to that and said, I'm going to own real estate someday. And I'm the only family member who does that. I went on and became a physician. We were working on becoming debt free. And it was coming up to the time we were just about to make our final house payment. And my wife and I sat down and said, well, what are we going to do with all this money we've been paying in debts that we won't have to pay anymore? We decided that was the time. Let's go ahead and start investing in real estate. I always wanted to do it. She wasn't big on it, but I was.
Yeah.
And so we decided, and I started reading some books on real estate. And a couple of months later, I bought my first place. It was a 31-unit apartment complex for over $1 million. And I bought it with no money down and got cash back at closing. And I managed it myself with my wife and kids. We had little kids at the time. And it was pretty easy to do. Everybody kept talking about how tough it is to take care of your own place. But, when you automate everything, it's pretty easy to do. There's not really much left for you to do when everything's automated. So I did that for a while, and people kept asking me, how'd you do that? How did you buy that with no money down? How did you get such a big property the very first time? How do you manage it? How do you manage, at the time, I was managing 64 units at the peak. And people just couldn't believe that a full-time surgeon could do that. And since everybody kept asking me, I said, you know what? I should write the book about that. And so my fourth book was all about real estate for busy professionals. What's different when you're super busy? You've already got a career. You don't need a second career in real estate, but you'd like to invest in real estate. And that's what that book was about, to teach people who are really busy how you can buy and own your own real estate like my grandparents did, like I did, and make it not a second job. If it feels like a second job, you're doing it wrong. It should be very little. I managed 64 units on 10 hours a month, and I could have done it on less than that, but there was a few things I kind of liked to do, and I kept doing them because I could. I had that option. And so we went on to buy real estate. We bought our final piece just before the crash in 2008. And we lived just fine through the crash because I teach people to buy it safe so that count on next year being a bad year. If you buy a piece of property knowing next year is going to be a bad year, you will be safe. If next year's a good year, you will be great. But too many people buy their properties depending on that next, or counting on that next year is going to be a banner year. And if it's not, they lose their property. And a lot of people in 2008 and 9 lost their properties because of that. But I try and teach, a busy professional needs to be safe with their purchases and not spend a bunch of time, but make sure that when you make that purchase, it's going to take care of you for the rest of your life. And that's kind of how I haven't had to buy any more. My wife put her foot down one day when I was out looking at another one and said, "Why are you looking at that?" I said, "Well, it's a great deal." "Yeah, but we already have enough real estate to take care of us and our kids for the rest of their lives. Why are you buying more?" So
that's another great point. First of all, what you mentioned, basis, we had a big, I don't know if you were there during that panel when that word kept coming up, but that is so important. How you buy the property, that's where you're making your money, and making sure you're getting a good deal and have enough margin and safety in that. And then the other thing you mentioned a lot was just that, there should be an end in sight. There should be what is your goal with investing? It's not just an end in itself, but what are you trying to get to? And
I see that way too much. People get going on, and real estate especially, because it's the people who get into it really like the hunt and kill concept. Oh, I got another one. And so you can get carried away with that, and you just keep going and going and going. And I see people with, "Oh yeah, I've got 250 properties," and the first thing I think of is, well, why? Nobody needs to own that much property to take care of themselves and their families and their kids and their grandkids forever. But we get carried away, and we keep going and going and going. I used a quote from a Dr. Seuss book of the Lorax. Are you familiar with the Lorax? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when the Lorax was telling the guy, "Hey, you can't just keep doing this," and he said to the Lorax, "I'll have you know, I'm figuring on biggering and biggering and biggering and biggering. There's just no end in sight of how big I'm going to make this."
Yeah, I think that's a great title for a real estate book, Biggering and Biggering.
Biggering and biggering. But the thing is if you were running a marathon,
Yeah.
what do you do when you cross the finish line?
Yeah, you celebrate.
You celebrate and you stop running. You don't, "Oh, well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to run another marathon." No, you don't. And we don't do that often enough when we get going in investing. We just get in that mode of more and more and more.
Dr. Fawcett, I wonder if it's because they're not achieving their goals because they didn't go about it the way you did. Because I was talking to a couple other investors and I was like, "So what's the drive? Why are you continuing to look for more properties?" And it was because the cash flow is not sufficient, even though they're active investors and they're operating their own investments. So it's not even like me, being invested in a syndication. They're actually investing and operating, and yet they don't have the cash flow to
Right.
stop looking for new properties. So, and one of the things he mentioned was because it's a large team, but I also think it's because they're not buying with that at the basis that they need to for to have that margin.
I think it's more than that. I think it's not how they bought, it's how they continued. Because I'm not a big fan of this BRRRR method. Buy, rehab, refinance. That's the part that's bad. Refinance. Because what they're doing, and these people that own lots of property but don't have any cash flow, it's because they keep refinancing the old properties, taking all the profit back out of it and wiping out their cash flow to buy another one. But rather than buy another one, why don't you improve the cash flow on the one you have by not refinancing it or refinancing it and throwing some money into it to make the loan even less so that your cash flow goes up. But if you keep refinancing and moving the money forward, Every time you refinance and take money out of a property, you decrease the cash flow. But cash flow is what will feed you in your retirement. It's not the appreciation of the property. It's not the depreciation. It's the cash flow. You pay your bills, you buy your food, you go on your vacation because of the cash flow. And so too many people concentrate on just getting more property rather than having more cash flow. Mm-hmm. And I think their method is not sustainable for long-term passive income options.
Yeah, I think that definitely is not scalable. But I think this person particularly, they're buying commercial properties, which you would think would have enough revenue. But again, I think, like you said, they could improve the property and improve the cash flow, but if they buy it at the wrong price, they're never gonna, correct that mistake. So maybe
I did that once. I did that once. I had some rules. These are the rules I'm going to follow for any property I buy. I broke those rules on one of my pieces, and because my realtor kept pushing me, oh, this is a great one. You got to buy this. Great location, right by your other ones. Just fits, He kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and you know what? I gave in. And I bought a property with a negative cash flow. And that was a stupid idea. You set the rules up that you're going to follow for a reason. I broke the rules. I bought a negative cash flow, and because I thought, okay, I could turn it around. And of course, the 2008 crash happened a couple of years later. It was about a decade before that property turned around and became a positive cash flow. That was a bad move on my part. And if you buy too many of those deals, you're just going to sink deeper. I mean, a negative cash flow, you can only feed so many of those before you're out of money. But if you had a small positive cash flow, you can have an unlimited number of those. And people do I made that mistake. I just got too excited about this piece of property and bought it anyway. Even though I was saying, no, I shouldn't do this. No, I shouldn't do this. I did it anyway. And it was a bad idea. I still own the property today because I buy my stuff with the notion that I'm going to hold it forever.
Well,
Otherwise,
time heals all errors, right?
especially in real estate, because it does keep going up in value and the rents keep going up and the mortgage keeps getting paid down. And eventually, even the negative ones become positive. And today that property makes me money, but I shouldn't have ever bought it. That was bummer.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I was able to retire at 54 on my real estate income, even though I made that dumb mistake. And that wasn't the only dumb mistake I made. So you can recover.
A lot of right moves to compensate for that one wrong move.
Yeah. You don't have to get all the moves perfect. You're going to make some mistakes and it'll be okay. As long as you keep moving correctly, most of the stuff is going to work out and it should be fine.
So what do you think is happening in the healthcare space or the physicians, in their lives that is causing this need to build a passive income or to look for the side gig? Like, I know in your case, you started early on and that was, something you were already planning to do. But I see a lot of physicians trying to shift from their primary medical practice into other things. Like, what do you think is happening there?
I think the big problem was people became prey to becoming an employee. I think that it kind of ruined medicine because long ago we were almost all owning our own business. I was a physician and I ran my physician business, right? And then the big box stores come into town. Imagine that the local hardware guy, Bob at Bob's Hardware, owns his hardware store. Then the big box guy comes into town, runs him out, hires him to work for them. And now Bob, who used to run a hardware store, he's the manager of the paint department in this big box store. That's exactly what happened to physicians. We started out as the owner of businesses, and then people, I don't know what it was, the new generation, people started thinking differently. Each generation has some different ideals. And nobody wanted to own anything. They wanted to just go to work, collect their pay, and go home. And then I think they became disgruntled. We don't own anything. I don't have a business. I can't get any write-offs. Being an employee is the most expensive way, tax-wise, to earn money. You can't find a higher tax bracket than earned income, and so here we sit now. Something like 80% of the physicians are owned by somebody else. They're in the worst tax bracket you can be in, having their income come in as a W-2, and they have no control over what's going on, and they wonder why they're not happy doing what they're doing, and they want to get out. They want to find a side gig to make some more money to get me out of this thing. But really what they could do is just get their own finances in order, and you'd find that you can live a great life where you're at if you changed your attitude about how it is and you changed your finances such that you were living on significantly less than you're earning and saving a lot of money. You don't necessarily need a side gig. You don't necessarily need to buy real estate, but you do need to live significantly under your income, and most of them are not doing that. We have a spend society. We have all these ads on television and on the internet to buy some more stuff. And yesterday I didn't even know this product existed, and today I don't think I can live without it, and I got to buy one. And so there's great marketing going on out there, and it's sucking us in. I was a victim of that. I left my residency with about $6,000 of debt. 3 years later, I was more than $500,000 in debt. Because as soon as I started earning a good income, people would loan me money, and I started buying stuff. Motorhome, a property to build a house, a business, a surgery center. I started buying stuff. And people would loan me money, and soon I found myself $500,000 in debt. And that's when my wife wasn't so happy, and she says, like, if you died, how am I going to pay all this off? This is incredible. And she wanted to get out of debt. And so that's how we decided to get out of debt. We had fallen prey to all of that. And once we were out of debt, it was incredible. We were spending $10,000 a month on debt.
Wow.
And that means if you're out of debt, that you don't need $16,000 a month of income to cover it. So if you had yourself in a position where you could live your same life by making $16,000 less, that's a lot of extra time off that you don't have to work. So if you will get yourself out of debt and live within your means, you could stockpile a lot of money and work a lot less hard. Right? Doctors all the time are saying, I'm just getting burned out. And I said, well, work less. Well, I can't. Well, why not? Because I got too many bills to pay. Well, right. Whose fault's that? Yeah. That's not your employer's fault. That's not the business's fault. That's not anybody's fault but your own. I found myself $500,000 in debt. Whose fault was that? That was my fault. I shot myself with my own gun, So we need to do better. We need to do better.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't work nearly as much, but like I've seen other like ER physicians. I was talking to one at the conference. He says he needs a minimum $500,000 to like just minimum to like
yeah.
$500,000 a year to survive.
Nobody needs a minimum of $500,000 to get by.
Like, wow,
it's like
that's pretty good. And he has real estate he's purchased real estate. He's an active investor. And he's working a lot of shifts, much more than I am. So I was just impressed. I was like, wow, like you would think that you've achieved what we want to achieve, right? Like you're an active investor, you've got cash flow, you've got your job. So yeah, it should be better than that. And I think you're right. I think people are spending too much.
I had a guy contact me. I do a coaching program called the Total Financial Makeover. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he called me because he realized that the way he was going, he's never going to be able to retire. And this doctor had a very lucrative practice. He was making $800,000 a year. But his net worth was zero. And he had been making $800,000 a year for a while. And we got to talking about it. And his spending, I mean, literally, he needed the $800,000 just to pay the bills. I mean, he had a butler and a cook and a nanny. Wow. And you start adding up all the stuff. They go to black tie affairs 3 days a week, out to partying. It was. And I said, so which of those things are you willing to cut back on, to stop doing? Because you cannot continue to spend at this rate if you want to ever retire. What you're doing is, no matter how much money you make, you spend it all and then some. And his answer was, I need to do all of those things. There's nothing I can cut out. And my answer was, well, I can't help you. Right? There's nothing I can do for you. You can't go on doing the same thing and expect to get a different result just because you talk to me. The reason that we're talking is because you need to make some changes and you're not willing to. And, the average American, if you lived on double the average American lifestyle, you live a pretty nice lifestyle. That's somewhere around $120,000, $130,000 a year. He's having a hard time on $800,000 a year. And so that is not an income problem. Right. That is a spending problem. He should have a lot of money in the bank, but he doesn't. He's living it up.
Yeah.
We can't go on like that.
And that's all like earned income. It's not any of it. None of it's passive income. I mean,
and it was taxed at its highest, the highest amount. So he gets a lot of the money sucked away because he's an employee. It just compounded all of the things as he was talking to me. It just kept compounding. Oh, that's another bad thing. Oh, boy, that's another one, too. And it's like he's doing everything in the most expensive possible way and wanting to save money. But you can't. I asked him, tell me about your last vacation. And as he described his last vacation, I found out that they would never think of staying in a hotel that was less than $1,000 a night. Wow. Those are just dumps. And I'm thinking, I'm a multimillionaire, and I have never stayed in a hotel that cost $1,000 a night, and they won't stay in one that's less than $1,000 a night. They definitely have a spending problem.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, and that's not an uncommon story, unfortunately. And regardless of what income people are earning, they're spending too much at that income for whatever they're making.
Right. If you ask somebody how much it takes, they did a study of this. How much does it take to live the American dream? And you ask somebody who's making $100,000 a year, they'll say $200,000. Okay, so just go ask those guys making $200,000. Tell me what it's like to live the American dream. Oh, I don't live the American dream. Well, how much would it take? Well, about $400,000. And you go to those people. No matter who you ask, it always takes way more than what they have. But when you check those guys, so the goalpost just keeps moving. We just keep going after something, and when we get close to it, we move it farther down. No, it's going to need to be this good to do it. And if you keep that going, there's no end. We were talking about finding your finish line. What is your finish line? If you don't know that, you're never going to know that you got there.
Exactly. No, those such wise words. I mean, I think I really love the way you went about it. There's such a humility and reasonableness to all of your ventures, whether it was real estate and then your practice. I mean, it really sounds like you were very level-headed and practical, and that's what I think is missing.
Well, I think I was really busy. I did a lot of stuff on the side besides medicine that was for fun. I raced bicycles. I performed music. I'm a worship leader at the church. I was a helper with the youth at the church. I'm currently working for a play. I'm going to be in a musical that opens November 8th. And, so I've got a lot of stuff to do. I'm busy. I can't be running around there. I hear things that just make my skin cringe. Stuff like, well, you have to make 100 offers to get one that sticks. I'm a busy guy. I do not have time to make 99 offers that didn't work. What a waste of time. I set up a system where I actually only made 2 or 3 offers a year on a property and got one. So I had close to 50% acceptance rates of offers I made. I didn't waste time with that stuff. I don't have time. That's the thing that's different about a busy professional. You don't have time to waste on finding your property. You have to set it up in a system that the realtor will find what you're looking for, and you're only bidding on something that you know you can get at the price you're offering. You make good offers that's a win-win for the two of you. If you try and lowball people and you're trying to get, the best price you can get, you're going to be wasting a tremendous amount of time on no offers that are turned down. And I like to tell people, think about my grandmother. Back in 1975, when she was looking at buying a house, and it was $20,000. And they were arguing over, oh, the guy wants $25,000, but we want to pay 20 for it. And they're, and if that petty difference, why don't you just pay 25 for it? If it'll cash flow, pay 25 for it, because she held it for 50 years. So 50 years later, when that property is worth $500,000, does it really matter if she bought it for $20,000 or $25,000? But if you think short term instead of long term, that makes a difference to you, because you're thinking like you're going to flip the property, you're going to sell it in 3 years, you're going to, if you think short term, boy, you're really price conscious. If I'm thinking I'm going to hold this forever, then the price isn't that big a deal. As long as it cash flows, I can take it. And it will grow and grow. In fact, I'm amazed at how much more my property is worth and how much more the cash flow is today than I projected it would be when I was buying it. It just did better than, so when you hang on to them forever, pretty soon the mortgages are paid off and your cash flow is sky high. And rents have gone up. And if you keep flipping it, you keep starting that process over. That's one of the things that I don't like about syndications, is that many of the syndications are short-term deals. They want the deal to go full circle in 5 years. So they never really get to go through that long cycle of appreciation. They take a short cycle, give you the money back, and you got to find another short cycle. There aren't very many of them who are aiming for a 40-year hold, like I am. And when you do that, the price becomes less important when you buy it. It's just important that it cash flows and is putting money in your pocket. You don't want a negative cash flow, but it'll become irrelevant. And if you offer them a decent price, you're not going to get a no. You're in one. So for me, today I own 4 properties that are multifamily properties for 55 units. That means I own 55 units and I only had to go through escrow 4 times. And that's it. If you're buying lots of properties and you're flipping them every few years and trading up, how many times are you going to go through escrow? Every time you go through escrow is a bunch of time out of your life that you could have been playing with your kids. And so I just try and shoot for low hours involved in my real estate. Today, I put almost 0 hours into the real estate, and it pays incredible dividends.
That's amazing. I mean, I love it, because I think you're the only one that brags about how few doors. Most people
Well,
got 10,000 doors or however many
right.
doors.
Oh, this is how many doors. I've got a mazillion doors. It's like, well, why? What is your goal, man?
Yeah.
The funny thing is if I had been smarter when I started my real estate deal, I would have never needed to purchase another one after I bought the 31 units. Because today, those 31 units in that one apartment complex purchase, the first one I did, would support my family all by itself. I only needed one 31 unit apartment complex, and then over the next few years, pay off the mortgage for it to support me in my entire retirement and probably both of my kids' retirements. But I kept buying more until my wife said, "Stop it. We got way more than we need." So, so at 55 units, at 30, my grandmother had less than 10 units and they were all paid for. So they cash flowed really nicely and she didn't need to work for the rest of her life. You don't need hundreds of units to make a great living in real estate investing. You need to make your units efficient and produce money for you.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is the cash flow and what price you're buying at. That's amazing. So we're almost out of time. So Dr. Fawcett, tell us about your business. Where can we reach you and your various coaching programs?
So I'm at financialsuccessmd.com. You can see it right there. And I'm on, if you use that or my name, Cory Fawcett, you will find me all over the internet, on Twitter and LinkedIn and all over the place. I have a couple of coaching programs. One is I mentioned before, the Financial Makeover to help. That's a 1-year program where we totally reshape your finances and get you living well under your means and saving money for the future. I think people's income as a physician is great. And if you used it well, you can have everything you want in life. But most of us don't use it well. And so we end up wishing we had stuff instead of having it. So, and my other coaching program is a high performance coach. I'm a certified high performance coach from Brendan Burchard. And that basically is to take your life to the next level, whether it's at home or at work. And one of the things I found out is doctors are pretty good high performers at work. And then they go home and they forget all about being a high performer. And they're not a very good performer at home. And they should take that high performance attitude that they use at work and do it at home. I remember one of my clients saying, I can't believe I hired a high performance coach and you're telling me to work less. Because he's overperforming at work, but he's underperforming at home. And you kind of want them both. You want to be a high performer in both places. And then I have a lot of people who contact me for, like you said, one-on-one things for a piece of real estate. They're buying, it's usually their first piece. They're buying their first piece of real estate. They call me for basically a second opinion on the property. Would you buy this one? And once they've done that and actually purchased one rental property, they don't need my help anymore because now they know, oh, well, that was easy. And they can go. But the first one is scary. And so a lot of people contact me for their first one. But once you've done one and realize how simple that was, if you did it right, then you're golden from there on out. So, contact me if you need some help with something that I can help you with, and I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will definitely refer them your way if I do get those calls, because I think having someone like yourself, very down to earth and practical in their approach, I think that's so important and often missing. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Fawcett. It was lovely.
You're welcome. It was a lot of fun.
The conversation.
It was a lot of fun, and I'd love to come back and talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.